Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Who's tired? Who had nightmares last night about the bromance between Jack York and Chris Perna? That is just something you can never erase from your mind. And I actually have a challenge to all of you before the next conference. And there'll be a cash prize. If anyone can help us figure out how to embarrass Jack York, which is probably going to be really hard because he has no shame, there's going to be big money in it, so get in touch with me. Thank you all for getting up this morning after a late night and a lot of fun for the last day of this amazing conference together. It's just been such a great time. We have got a really special treat for you this morning. If you've been to the last few conferences, you've been a part of the Eden Talks, which are similar. They're modeled after TED Talks. And so this morning, we are going to give you the opportunity to hear some really amazing speakers sharing their ideas and dreams and visions with you. So I hope you enjoy. We're going to get started now with our first Rise Up speaker. Pablo Picasso said, "Art washes from the soul the dust of everyday life." What does art do for you? We would like to welcome, that's the wrong one. So we had a little delay with one of our participants because of the race outside. Where can you find purpose, dignity, community, and the opportunity to live each day with meaning and grace among your peers? Where can you experience one of the finest gifts of life? To be surrounded by the people who believe in one another. Daphne knows. Please welcome to the stage Daphne Mobley Johnston.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to Karen Stobie because, there's just nobody that could have a better dementia mentor, Eden, caring person. I just want to give her a hand. Thank you. And what she means to this conference. Many of you know the story of Phil Knight, the founder of Nike tennis shoes. He loved running, and he wanted everyone to love and experience running. He worked on those shoes day and night, and they flew off the shelf, and they couldn't keep them in stock. And you know why? Because he believed in what he was selling. He believed that it could change people's lives, and he believed that he could make the world a better place. I want you to know today, I want it to come across today that I believe in the faith-based volunteer model of care for our families living with Alzheimer's and dementia. It's been said in the old parable, where there's no vision, the people perish. My vision is to include volunteers and our neighbors and our friends. We need to include them in our care. We can't just be in facilities all the time, and we've got to think of new things. Our ministry began with 2 participants and 14 volunteers coming 2 days a week. Well, now, 6 years later, we have 55 families coming a week, 25 participants a day, 15 volunteers a day, 120 volunteers in our pool of just incredible talent. All of these people are scheduled with 1 email per week, 45 slots fill. It's amazing. When I heard Al Power speak for the first time on the theory of well-being, to fill people up with connectedness and security and autonomy and joy, that's what I knew my volunteer army was doing every day. We were filling people up with purpose and joy. You know, our ministry started at First Methodist in Montgomery. We wanted to include everybody from the community. We knew to make a project like this work, we needed corporate sponsors, places of worship, other churches. We're all in this together. We wanted to include everybody. And now, 6 years later, I can say we've got Jewish, Baptist, Buddhist, Methodist, Episcopalian, atheist, gay, straight, black, white. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. We are all in this together. It was our Jewish family participant that came into the building, came into the program, and she said, "Why is this not in other cities?" I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Can I take it back to Birmingham? Can we have this model in my city?" And I said, "Well, sure." And we gave them everything we had. She goes back, starts it in her city. Now there's 3 in her city. One particular church has got 80 participants coming a week. You know, the growth happened overnight. They took it back, and now we have 10 programs in 7 cities. And in Atlanta, in July, Respite Atlanta will open. A growing body of research suggests that there are 6 lifestyle choices that can help prevent the devastation of Alzheimer's: regular exercise, healthy diet, mental stimulation, quality sleep, sleep management, and an active social life. The volunteer model provides all of this, except for sleep, and I know we contribute to that. Just imagine those people at home all day with one person and then getting thrown in a big ministry like this with 30 or 40 people. We help sundowning. We help all the issues that come with this disease. Through this ministry, we're reaching a community of people that have been isolated by this disease, who are losing their identity, and they need a connection to life. God is using these volunteers to hold these families and say, "You are not forgotten. We are here. We are here and ready to serve." Although it's art, music, service projects, we did 1,000 flood kits for the people in Houston. All those things are great. But as I heard Carter Catlett Williams say at my first conference, it's the give and take of being needed by another in the everyday life that makes life worth living. And that's what these volunteers give. They give a group. They give a group of responsibility and purpose and accountability. It's so hard to form these deep relationships when you're working with a staff in a facility, because we all know they've got multiple tasks to get going through the day. They can't take the time to just stop and chat and talk a lot of times. But these volunteers can. They clear their day, they clear their minds, and they give undivided attention for 4 hours a day. What a gift. Really, some of the magic of the program is that there's no labels. When you walk into a respite ministry, there's no different name tags, there's no smocks, there's no uniforms. It's just everybody coming together, just doing the best we can. The atmosphere of respite is that of a continuing education class mixed with a cocktail party. Lots of learning, lots of lectures, lots of lighthearted conversation, and lots of fun. I had one lady come in the first day, and she spent the whole day with us, and she looked around the room and she said, "Damn, this is just better than AA." And I said, "What?" And she said, "There's no last names and everybody's just living in the moment." And I said, "You know what? You're right. You're right. I'm going to remember that." They're all just doing the best we can. The best we can. I'm reminded of a story of one of the volunteers. She had lost her husband, and she was in deep grief and deep depression, and she knew she had to get out. And we had just gotten a new participant, Eileen, that had come to us with Lewy body and aphasia, and she could barely verbally talk. But she and this volunteer, BB, they just hit it off. They were the best of friends, and weekly they would gather, and they loved and just participated in everything, and they loved each other. And one night, BB, the volunteer, called, and she was crying. She was just sobbing. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Daphne, Eileen's husband's called, and her children are flying in from New York and Chicago and California. And they've invited me to Thanksgiving dinner. Is it legal for a volunteer to go to dinner?" And I said, "Of course it is. Are you kidding?" And that became one of our signature stories, because you see, in that very moment, Eileen, who could barely communicate, she had become the volunteer in this relationship. She had brought her skills of empathy and love to this lady, BB, to get her out of grief and depression. You know, I asked my group, what does this group mean to you? What do you think we do during the day? We meet from 10 to 2 and we do a lot of crazy things. And some of the words they threw out were loving, learning, engaging, growing, and doing it all together. One lady just shouted from the back of the room. She said, "It's a marvelous way to live." And that is, it is. You know, you're thinking, what are these volunteers? Why are they so special? What is the big deal? What do they go through to be able to do this daily? My volunteers are boomers that have retired, that have figured out they don't want to play golf and tennis to find their happiness for the next 20 years. My volunteers want to serve. They don't want to be served chicken salad sandwiches. They want to have meaning. They want to grow. They want to grow as a person. So they go through a 4-hour training, and we go through communicating with people with dementia. We go through some role play things that could happen. But mainly, we go through positive language. We remind ourselves, we remind everyone how to be genuine and how to build people up. And we go through phrases like, "Oh, George, could you be the welcome wagon today? I've got a new fella coming in. Could you help me? Could you help me set up for this project? I really appreciate your help today. Thank you for your thoughts. Oh, I missed you last week." It's not medical. It's not medical. It's common sense. Many of my volunteers have said, "You know what? Just going through this training has made me better in my family life. It's made me better in my circle of friends. It's given me the habit of building people up." You know, we don't even want a nurse to run this program. We've got 10 programs, and it's all people like me, just genuine, common sense people that can organize just a little bit. Through the volunteer model, we're educating our communities, friends and families, on how to be better listeners, how to be better encouragers, but most importantly, how to just enjoy being in the presence of your neighbor. My prayer for you today is that you hear something so big and so bold that you'll take it back to your community churches, or you'll go and look in your community to find a church or a place of worship that could do a model like this. You know, what I've learned is the cost is next to nothing. It's almost free because the space is not being used during the week. You just need a part-time director, and we can all just do it in our different ways, the different power leadership in the different areas. There's nothing to it. It's not rocket science. I look around the room, and I see a bunch of leaders in the room. And a great leader is anticipatory. Right now, there's over 5 million people diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And in 2050, there'll be over 14 million. Do we really want to attempt to lock up 14 million people? Eden is a great place to figure out we've got to do things differently. We've got to add some different components for beginning and middle stages. You know, at this point in my regular presentation, I throw up a slide of the cast of Cheers. Ty, have you got that picture? You all remember this, right? Sam and Cliff and Norm, Diane and Coach. These are my volunteers. We have got some grumpy ones. We've got some people full of wisdom. We've got some good-looking men and some bossy women. And I don't know about you, but when my mind begins to slow, I want to be with them. I want to be working and coming together at the end of the day and sharing life's ups and downs. It's the relationships. It's the relationships. So I challenge you today to rise up and figure out a way to get the faith-based volunteer model in your community, in your city. And you know what? You can do this in your buildings. Don't be hamstrung by one volunteer story from 17 years ago, 3 administrators ago, and you've written off the volunteer army. Get these people in there, get them trained, and let them help you have relationships in your building. It's the relationships that people are starving for. Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne. That was incredible. Incredible. Next, you may know Jack York as the founder of Intl and all the other things that Jack York is. But today we're going to hear from a different Jack York, the son of Jim and Dorothy York and brother of Tom and Francis. And Jack is going to share with us what he has learned so far along this journey. Jack?
I am going to just walk around a little bit a la Dr. T. When Chris first asked me to do this little TED Talky kind of thing, I was assuming I would do this, talk my usual spiel of technology and dementia and aging and the stuff I've been talking about for 19 years now. And then the lovely and talented Ms. Stobie, wherever she is in here, said that it would be interesting for me to tell my story. And my first thought was that would be somewhat narcissistic, and I was a little bit uncomfortable doing it. But then when I started thinking about it, there's a message to my story that hopefully comes across at the end of what I'm going to say. And so I guess bear with the first part of it, but there is going to be a tie-in at the end. How many people here have more than one kid, more than one child? Okay, huge number of hands. So I think you'll be able to relate to this comment that I have 3 kids. You can see the Nathan, JP, and Perrin, and when they're little and where they are now. And you have an unlimited ability to love your kids equally. It's not like I love them a third and a third and a third. You love your kids equally. And I think that's, I guess, the 2 stories that I'm going to tell are the story of It's Never Too Late and the story of Francis. And they're so meaningful to me, and they're really kind of professionally been what has made me tick over the last 20 years. And there's a theme of the 2 stories that has to do with just listening to an inner voice that tells you, you know what? I think I'm going to jump off a cliff and do what this is. Do what my heart's telling me to do. This was me for about 20 years or 15 years. I was the Silicon Valley guy that I made a lot of money selling widgets. They were really cool widgets, but they were widgets. And I remember when I was probably about 35, our company, you go through the ups and downs in a business climate, and our company had a slowdown in business, and we laid about 25 people off on a given week. And it happens, and reality is reality of business. But that same week, I was flying to Singapore in business class, and the CEO of our company was in first class, and he went to the flight attendant, and for $7,000 had me upgraded so I could sit next to him the same week that he'd laid 25 people off that was probably half of one of their annual salary. And he also didn't drink, so I was in first class Singapore Airlines, and I couldn't drink this like $400 bottles of Bordeaux that they were bringing by. But I sat there for 14 hours on a plane going, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy when I'm kind of my age now. And so while all that was going on, my mom was, before that was going on, a friend of mine had the idea to donate some computers to an assisted living community in Southern California in Long Beach. And it was never thought of as a business. It was just a donation. I had money and no time, and my friend Leslie had time and no money. So we donated a computer to a local assisted living community. And then about 6 months later, we went on my mom was turning 80, and she hated the idea of being 80. It bothered her. But she took the kids and grandkids, she took all of us on a cruise, just a 3-day cruise in Southern California. And the last night of the cruise, I wound up on the top deck with my mom, and I was smoking a big cigar, and she was sneaking a cigarette, and we were looking at that moon on the left. And if you look at the logo of our company, there's a moon on that logo that's dedicated to my mom. And we're on the top deck of the ship, And she started saying, she was just telling me that everything in her life that she had wanted to ever happen had come true. And she's talking about the kids and the grandkids and her life with Dad, and it was just an incredibly emotional experience. And then 3 days later, we had a surprise birthday party for my mom. And that's my mom and my brother at the surprise party right when she had walked in. And so like 300 people there. It was this huge event, people all over the country in San Diego. And so, so she's dancing and singing and doing all that stuff. And then about towards the end of the night, she started looking a little dizzy, a little out of whack. And so I'm the youngest of 5 and kind of have that, you're supposed to take care of things as the youngest kid. So it was, let's get an ambulance just to be safe. And so an ambulance came to get Mom, and the paramedics come out, they look at her, they go, she's really fine, but let's, just for precautionary, let's take her to the hospital. So they take her to the hospital, and I follow the ambulance. And everybody else stayed back at the party dancing and drinking. And so I'm just driving myself. There's no cell phones. It's 1998. And I'll never forget this moment. Halfway to the hospital, all of a sudden they turn all the lights on and they just start hauling. They were going 55, and all of a sudden they just start going 90 towards the hospital. So something's happened. And you get to the hospital, and my mom had a massive stroke in the back of the hospital. Karen told me to practice this so I didn't choke up about it, but I'll have to watch it the next couple months. So anyway, she comes out of the ambulance in the gurney, and she's, I never describe these things well in the group of culture change folks, but she had that look. She just had a massive stroke. She's completely in a coma. And I just held her hand, and you're trying to process this. I'm dancing, that's her 4 hours before. And her spirit, it was no different. Here, I'll do a serious thing with you, Mr. Perna. I hold my mom's hand, and it was no different than her telling me to take the trash out, that she said, you're supposed to do something different. You're supposed to get out of what you're doing. It's not about frickin' widgets. And so I didn't make that connection, but I said, well, you know what? My nickname in the company is Ready, Fire, Aim. So my thought was, okay, maybe it's these computers that we're donating. And so I went to my brother Tom. He should pop up here in a second. There's my brother Tom. I sent Tom an email saying, I'm going to start this company. And he emails me back, yeah, I'll do it with you. And I go back to look at my original email. There was no invitation whatsoever to have him be a part of the company. But we jumped off the cliff. We didn't know what we were doing, and we started It's Never Too Late. And the first 10 years were just hell, except for the people that I met, and I'll talk about that in a second. But Tom died. Tom died about 5 years into the journey. It was. You question, you question faith, you question, was I really hearing that, blah, 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 but we just kept going on. And so that was the very first system we set up at Christian Living Communities in 2001. And so and then I would exploit mercilessly my children. So that's Nathan at a fundraiser in Illinois. And he helped raise $62,000, and I see Rosemary here. Where's Rosemary? Rosemary knows Nathan as well as anybody else in this room. And so I started so what happened is we were losing money. When I started It's Never Too Late, I had $1.5 million in the bank in cash. It was all gone. Every dime was gone. But I'd meet people. Is Jude in here somewhere? Okay. I came to the first Eden conference, was it 2002? Yeah, it's in South Carolina. And so I'm there at a booth. The way I used to set up booths were so bad. All the wires, and it was horrible. And she just sat down. she just sat down and talked to me for about 30 minutes about what I was doing. And through the years, the whole Eden experience has been such a positive thing for me. I don't know if Nancy's in here, but Nancy had us be the first Eden valued partner, and that was at the Good Samaritan community, and we were celebrating and toasting, and she invited the boys to come speak in Australia at the Eden and Oz conference, and it was just the whole. Again, you're from a company standpoint, you're just compartmentalizing because everything is going wrong. In financially, but you have to have a mojo when you talk to people that things are going okay. And luckily, I was able to self-fund the company because anybody would have fired me that had invested money in it. But all of a sudden, here we are in 2017. We're in almost 2,800 communities now. I love that second line. In 2017. 5 million hours of usage of our systems in the U.S. and Canada, wherever the Schlegel folks are. I got socks from my Schlegel friends today. So, and we have just the coolest employees that have been so committed to what we're doing and the whole cause. And so, it's such a dream come true for me. And we're to reality is we're like an 18-year-old startup. We've just pumped a lot of money into technology development. I have choreographed my own demotion, so I'm not the CEO anymore, thank God. Once we had to get an HR person, Jill, as you can imagine, my days were numbered. But it has been, we're a successful, an extremely successful company, all built on just trying to make people's lives better. And so, I honor my mom. So the next story takes us to that little red country that you see there in the middle of Africa called Cameroon. And this is story number 2, that I was invited to speak. This is in Perth, Australia, 2.5 years ago. I'm so proud of it. It's never too late. And Katie Sloan had me, from Leading Age, had me speak at a panel on innovation. And I'm speaking about, I'm getting ready to speak about the technology stuff. So I follow this guy, Francis from Cameroon, and to me, he's like, he completely looks, when I first met him, he was like Eddie Murphy in Coming to America. He's got it. And so his story, it's just like this. He's speaking before me, and his story is the same year that It's Never Too Late started. He lived in a village in Cameroon. He's got his father had 3 wives, and each one of the wives has 10 to 12 kids, all in this village. That's the total reality TV show to be had there. And his father died, and the just minute amount of property that his father had went to some uncle 3 villages away, because women were not allowed to have any possession. And he just stood up in Tiananmen Square style. He just stood up and said, this is wrong. With death threats, with everything in his life, upheaval, he stood up against it and started this organization called CDVTA that has done remarkable things, impacting tens of thousands of people in Cameroon, particularly women and the elderly. And so I'm supposed to follow that story. We have really cool technology. It was a little tough dichotomy. I kind of gave him most of my time just to not, but anyway, so the story is that after he speaks, we sent him a $500 donation. And our CFO was like, okay, you go to Australia and you meet this guy from Cameroon that we have to wire $500 to. What really happened in Cameroon? That's a whole other story. So he sent him $500, and you don't think anything about it. You don't think any, you're not expecting anything. 8 weeks later, I get these pictures and videos, and it's kind of hard to see it, but it's for $500, he set up the Jack York Elderly Women's Sustainable Goat Rearing Project in Northwest Cameroon. So I'm just going, you got to be kidding me. And what is this? And so I call him, and we start Skyping him, and this is my second aha moment in my life. he tells me, I had no money to go to Australia. I had no money to go to Perth, Australia. But God told me I should go because I would meet somebody. And at the risk of being narcissistic, I'm all in. So he had never been to the U.S. before, and so we land in New Orleans. He lands in New Orleans. I've spent 15 minutes with him, and we were about to spend every day together for 3 weeks. So my first line when I saw him was, do people drink in Cameroon? And his answer was, Cameroon consumes the second most per capita alcohol in all of Africa. So we were ready to roll. And so he spoke. He did the opening. Thanks to Karen and Ruta Keta went along with having Francis do the opening keynote in New Orleans. And so we went on this. We drove from. I didn't want him to just see airports, so we drove from New Orleans to Las Vegas. And it was just this remarkable story. We went the Denny's story on the left. We go to Denny's, and we got four of us or five of us are driving, and so we go to Denny's, and it's in the middle of Texas. And so we get to Denny's, we have breakfast. He's like so excited about a Grand Slam breakfast. It was like the coolest thing in the world. And so then we're driving. 8 hours later. Two of the guys in the back go, we are hungry. When do we pull over in the middle of nowhere? And Francis says, good news, I got the pancakes from this morning. So it was a different perspective. And then Vegas, Francis in Vegas was a whole other story that I won't go into details. But and there he is in Arizona. He's standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona with 7 women on his mind. But the serious part of the trip was raising money, because we said the whole point of the trip was, if that's what you would do for $500, what in the hell would you do for 20 grand? I just randomly said 20 grand. And in New Orleans, so we started getting donations based on goats. For $250, you'd get a goat named after you. And so we start the fundraising in New Orleans, and Chris Perna stands up and says, we'll donate $1,000 if you do it in the name of Hannah Thomas. And Francis heard that story. So anyway, what he wanted to raise the money for was a senior center. To us, what's a senior center? There is no building in the whole country of Cameroon that's dedicated 100% to elders. And so we started the fundraising for the senior center, and Chris turned it brought up the whole Hannah idea. And then Francis said, wait a second, let's make it both a senior center and also a room with children with disabilities. And so we raised the $25,000. We went to different communities. Long story, but he's so powerful. He goes into a community and he speaks, and he finds whatever woman has the whitest hair, and he gets on his knees and he blesses that woman for her wisdom. And I tell you, it is powerful. And we're getting ready to, every year we do a 3-week tour. So if you want to have them come to your community, let me know. And so we raised money. Front Porch in California did a project. I went to Cameroon, and this is how I was greeted at these villages. They were all part of the GOAT. And I think, and it was just remarkable, these stories and these people, and it was so life-changing. And yeah, here with this is a quiz. It's Never Too Late is based on a cognitive quiz, or a lot of cognition. Your job is to try to figure out find the white guy. See if you can find the white guy in this We can watch those clips. Okay, that's good. And so that's a picture of Francis. He's wearing, that's my brother's shirt. And he's wearing, that's why he didn't, when they opened the senior center that's named after my mother and Hannah Thomas, it's the Dorothy York Senior Center and the Hannah Thomas Alternative for Children. 3,000 people chanting my mother's name. And so, real quick, I know I'm running over, but I want to think real quick, and hopefully this will work. I'm sorry, Jill, I know I'm in trouble. All right, I got to do this real quick because technology is pretty crazy. WhatsApp, baby. Hello? Francis! Hey, everybody say hi, Francie! Hey! Hey, ma, hey, hey. Oh, here comes the family. See, the second trip. He did a second trip. His wife came because of the Las Vegas pictures. All right, I'm running over. I got to say goodbye. But I want to tell you that I love you, Francis. We're saying good things. The Eden Alternative. There's Chris again.
Hello, Francis.
Yeah, I know. He's much older. He's retiring because he's much older than he looks. It's okay. And here is the new. Do you know in Cameroon? I don't know. Do you have a car? If you have an old car that you trade in for a good new car, I want you to meet Jill. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. There's Rosie. All right, Rosie. Yeah. All right, Rosie. All right. It's okay. Sorry, Rosie. I didn't mean to cut you off. All right. Okay. So my message, trying to tie it to everybody in the room, is that everybody hears things. Everybody hears things. And it's not about starting a company, and it's not about going to Africa. It's to listen to what you hear and have the balls to say, you know what? I'm a little nervous to do this, and maybe it doesn't make sense. But do it. Just do it. Thank you. All right.
Is this on? We're going to have. Can you all hear me? Okay. We are going to have our next special guest set up here. And while we do that, we've got a few announcements for you all. I want to talk a little bit about some amazing educational opportunities that are coming up. What does Principle 10 teach us? Anybody? Wise leadership. Without wise leadership, we are going nowhere. And who can be a leader? And everybody has to be a leader, right? And so what we need to do is continue to grow as leaders. And so we have some great opportunities coming up for all of us and for the folks back at your communities at home to learn more and grow. If we can get the slides up, Ty, with the educational opportunities. All right. Okay, so because we've got some really great opportunities for people to continue to grow as leaders. All right, so 3 steps. We have a pathway to becoming a transformational leader. The first step is Leadership Pathways to Culture Change. Who's taken that class? That's based on Nancy Fox's book. Wow, there need to be a lot more hands. That is one of my favorite classes that there is. You will learn so many tools and tricks and things to do and ways to grow yourself and others. That is available. You can have, it's a 2-day class that you can do anywhere in the country. We've got educators who are certified to teach that. Talk with Meredith, and we have her contact information coming up to schedule Pathways to Leadership class. The next opportunity, and this is another really exciting one, Nancy Fox has a new book that was just published. Did anybody go to, we had her book signing, right? So I've already actually purchased the book right when it was available, and just like the first book, it's incredible. And so Nancy Fox, the master herself, will be teaching that class in Denver, Colorado, July 11th and 12th. So really, this is a great opportunity to learn directly from Nancy, who's an incredible leader. The third opportunity is facilitative leadership, and that is an online class. It's a 5-week class that is taught by Laura and Denise, two amazing, amazing teachers. So that is available to do right from wherever you are, right from home. Great opportunity to learn and grow. And then finally, how many educators, Eden educators, do we have in here? Oh, we've got a lot of them. You guys are awesome. Is there anyone who's dreaming about becoming an educator? Yeah, we've got some people who want to be educators. We need more incredible educators to be out teaching people about these important messages. And so we've got an unbelievable opportunity this summer to go to a 1-week Train the Trainer intensive. So you can go and become certified to teach Eden alternative classes. And here's the best thing. Has anybody been to Steamboat Springs, Colorado? It is one of the most, and I live in, I think it's the most beautiful state ever. Steamboat Springs is the most beautiful place in Colorado. And so this training is being hosted at Casey's Pond, which is an Eden registered community. And it really looks like this. These pictures, that's of Casey's Pond. So this is a great way to go spend a week, go early, stay longer. There's a moose that comes into the pond there with a baby sometimes. Wildlife everywhere. You'll probably see bears. On my way to Starbucks when I used to go up there, I would see bears. And it's just a gorgeous, amazing place. So if you're going to become an educator, this is a great chance to do it. And that'll be taught by Meredith and Denise. All right, and then are we ready? All right, perfect. Well, I am going to introduce our next amazing group here. So, and this is what I started introducing in the beginning. Pablo Picasso said, "Art washes from the soul the dust of everyday life." What does art do for you? We would like to welcome our artists, Ann Schulman and Sherry Ayers, and their art facilitator, Marley Levine-Hunt. Take it away.
Thank you so much. We made it here. We had a beautiful tour this morning of all the back roads of Buckhead, which was really beautiful. We really had a nice time. So I am Molly, and I have the honor of spending every Tuesday morning at the Jewish Tower, which is right down the street, with artists, including Sherry and Ann. And we also have Judy, Ann's daughter, here. And so we're excited to be here, and we're excited to talk a little bit about art, the art we create, and a little bit about our history. So Sherry, would you like to start and tell us a little bit about your journey with art?
Hey, as long as we're quoting Picasso here, he also said that he spent his whole life learning to paint like a child. And that gives me hope. Our group varies in size. It fluctuates a little bit. It's generally about 18 to 22 people. And about half of them never were interested in art, never did any drawing or painting. And, we've encouraged them to join us. And some of them have become wonderful artists. I think it's the most successful program at the Tower. It's long, it's well-funded, it's very successful. And we have an art show every year. This year, I sold 3 paintings, which is kind of amazing. And I think that for me, I used to love to garden, okay? And painting takes that creative energy and lets me use it a little bit. So I started painting and drawing when I was a child, and I did all the way through school and high school, and I had a few art lessons. But then for 40 years or longer, I didn't do anything like that. So I joined this group as soon as I moved into the Tower, and I would be terribly disappointed if it ended. I mean, it's been really good for me. And I think I'm getting better, you know?
Thank you, Sherry. Anne, can you tell us a little bit about when you first realized that you enjoyed making art?
I started paint when I was a child, and I was always into art. I am 99 years old. We have this wonderful art class at the Towers, and our group is just wonderful and caring. And I could draw with my eyes closed, but I can't get the colors right because I can't see the colors. I could see the light colors, but if there's blue with green, I can't say which is which, you know. So somebody helps me pick the colors, but the drawing itself, I could do. Of course, I can't do as well as 40 years ago, but I have some beautiful, very large paintings that I did. But I have a couple here that I brought to show you. But now all I can do is paint flowers. So that's what I do. And I love it, and I love our group, and I love our helpers who come to help us pick out colors or do whatever's necessary for us, except not to paint our pictures. That's it.
Sherry, you're one of the most well-traveled people I've ever met. So can you tell us a little bit about how your life of traveling and exploring, how that plays a part in your art?
Well, I grew up in an oil camp in Saudi Arabia. And, you know, part of the perks of the oil business is that you get to travel a lot. So my parents dragged us kids through every museum and zoo in Europe. And, you know, when you travel, you see things that are just so different, so stunning, that you know, you take pictures and all that, but there's always some part of it you want to capture and keep. And I think that's the way I look at art. I see something like a pretty sky, and I think, how can I do that? Can I? Or I see a photograph and say, can I paint that? Or a seascape or a lighthouse or anything that, and I have to tell you, I paint over a lot of canvases. You know, I try something and I screw it up, so I paint over it. But it's very satisfying, and it's a wonderful program. And the group is very copacetic. We get along really well. We help each other. And if I bought a canvas from Goodwill, it's a huge canvas that I was going to paint. I struggled with it. It just wore me out. So I gave it to the guy who sits next to me, and he did a beautiful painting, a cityscape on it. Very out there, but it's a cityscape. But he could wrestle with this huge canvas where I couldn't. So the group is like that, you know. And this one, Anne, always fusses at him that he did it wrong. He needs to do it better. And he loves her. So, no, we have we really do help each other in the class. We're not competitive. We're helpful to one another. So, if next April, you guys come on out to the tower and come to our art show, and I'll have something wonderful to give away.
So, Anne, your experience with art, I know, has changed with your vision changes. And you mentioned a little bit about how you can draw with your eyes closed. And you always say after group, when we're talking about the art, you say, pretty good for someone who can't see. So can you tell us just a little bit about what it's like creating art now that you've had vision change?
Well, it's very hard, but I always drew, so it was mechanical with me. You know, I like I said, I could, no matter how I can't see the colors, I could draw only flowers, not the things that I used to draw. I used to make very large pictures, maybe 2 feet square or something like that, but I have them hanging in my apartment. But I can't do that anymore, but so I do what I can. I do the flowers, and I try each flower to be different than the picture before. What can I say? I do the best I can.
So, Sherry, you sold some artwork.
I did.
What was that like? Hold on.
Well, you know, sometimes when you're painting and you think you're trying to do something and it turns out so awful, and you get a little bit discouraged. But, you know, it comes in cycles where you feel good about things and not so good about things. But selling those 3 paintings I had lots of money in my pocket last month. And people came back to me and said, well, we hung that in our little girl's room, or we hung that in the bathroom, or we hung that in the kitchen. And that's very cool. And then last week, after the art show, I was getting off the elevator, and this guy who was a visitor, and I had seen him once or twice before, he said, did you sell the painting of the lighthouse? And I said, no, I didn't. And he said, that is a really badass painting, and I want it. So he's going to buy, I'm going to have sold 4 paintings, which is kind of amazing.
Congratulations. And Anne, you had a really successful show as well. It was a beautiful show. The art show. You had a really good show. It was wonderful. Wonderful show. Okay, thank you so much for letting us be here with you guys. And
Thanks to you and your helpers.
we have good helpers.
Putting everything together.
Thank you, Anne.
That took a lot of work.
We had a really great show. So I just want to thank Anne and Judy and Sherry for coming and visiting with us this morning. They're amazing artists.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, and be sure to check out Anne and Sherry's art up here as well.
Can you turn? Oh, okay, good. Thank you for being here with us today. We really enjoyed having you. It was wonderful. I forgot to mention when I was talking about all those great classes, to find out about it, Meredith's email is mmartin@edenalt.org. So she is the person to go to who can help you with all the information. Kathy, do you want to do an announcement?
I just want to make a quick announcement for everybody that's in the grant project that you're still filling out your evaluation form and to hand it in to registration before you leave. And you're not leaving until 7:30. And it's going to be a great show tonight.
Thank you. Jack, you have a very quick announcement.
You do those things, you always forget to say one thing. And the one thing I want to say, where's Walter and David? Somewhere back here. Yeah, so the Dorothy York Senior Center, it was like throwing a rock in the water that it ripples. And Walter and David, WD International, they went to Cameroon in January. They raised money to fund a nurse that's at the Dorothy York Senior Center. And Francis is coming to Atlanta in October. These guys are setting up a fundraising event. So anybody in Atlanta will get word out to you. And we're going to plan a 3-week trip. So if anybody's interested in having them come to their community, we want to talk about it. So anyway, thank you, Walter, David. I love you guys. All right.
That was That's good. Thanks, Jack. It is now my great pleasure to bring Brian LeBlanc to the stage. Brian, as I'm sure many of you have noticed, has an amazing smile, an unstoppable passion. He lives in the moment, and he has some important things he wants to share with you today. And one more really important thing. Brian has Alzheimer's disease, but it doesn't have him. Welcome, Brian LeBlanc.
I know you might not remember me, but these were words said to me by my family before telling me something or being asked a question. So, how's he doing? When I'm standing right there in front of them, friends, family acquaintances, they automatically assume that I can't understand or I can't reply because I have Alzheimer's. So they ask whoever I'm with at the time questions about me. You have Alzheimer's? Yeah, right. I get Alzheimer's when I drink. That's a conversation I had in a local retail shop when the person didn't believe that I looked the part and made a joke about it. In all of these instances, I was dismissed. I was shoved in a corner as if I didn't matter. Why is that? I will attempt to answer those questions for you because as a kid, I spent a lot of time in the corner, but not for Alzheimer's reasons. I didn't follow rules very well. But part of the reason why I'm shoved in the corner is because Alzheimer's is one of the most, if not the most, misunderstood diseases in the world today. As you can see, I'm using cue cards because without them, I wouldn't be able to stand here and deliver this talk. Alzheimer's took that away from me. Well, I could probably deliver it, but it probably wouldn't make sense, nor could I deliver the message that I wanted to convey. Or I couldn't remember words like convey. But some of you may be thinking, oh my God, the Alzheimer's guy is making jokes. Well, yes, I am. Because I found that it's a lot more fun to laugh at yourself than to cry. You should see when there's a group of us, when we all get together, we all make fun of each other for things that we can't remember. We also spend a lot of time talking about everything but Alzheimer's. That's because we're still living. You see, we ask that you don't see us. I'm sorry, we ask that you do see us and not the disease. Because Alzheimer's does not define who we are. It's not who we are, it's not what we are, it's just something that we have. I'll give you an example of what it's like living with Alzheimer's. Imagine your most obnoxious relative. I know you all have one. Well, they come over at Christmas to visit. One day you wake up and it's Easter Sunday. They're still sleeping on your couch, irritating the hell out of you every single day. Now, if it's somebody that should be shoved in a corner or better, locked in a closet, it's that guy. But it's not us. That's what Alzheimer's is like each and every day. We wake up and, like that obnoxious relative, It starts irritating us. It does this by causing us to forget our words. It causes us to lose our balance, so we fall. I fall on the average about 2 or 3 times a day, and that's a good day. It causes us to forget names of our acquaintances, our friends, our family, and even our loved ones. This is not what I envisioned my retired life to be. I had no idea that at the age of 53, I would be forced into retirement because I couldn't work anymore. As a public relations and marketing guy, I had to meet deadlines, write copy, produce radio and TV spots. Well, I started to miss some of the deadlines, but I rushed to get them done. But then I started to miss the deadlines completely, forgetting there was a deadline. On my radio shows and TV shows, once was just talking off the cuff, off the top of my head. It became difficult. So I had to start using cue cards, scripts, and it became not as personal as it was before. It lost some of its improvisation. It became evident that I wasn't able to handle the duties and the responsibilities that I once managed. So I was let go. I tried to find other employment, and as I would learn during the day, I would make notes. Well, the next day, when I showed up for work, not only could I not remember what I learned the day before, I couldn't find the little book that I wrote my notes in because I forgot where I put it. So it became evident that I had a problem remembering things. One thing led to another, and I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. When I first got diagnosed, some of the best advice that I ever received was, once you put it out there, you can't take it back. So when I started telling family and friends about my diagnosis, they suddenly started to disappear. Phone calls stopped. They weren't returned. It was like I had the plague. Even my 2 oldest brothers accused me of faking my disease. Of course, they didn't say that to me personally. They talked to my sister. And of course, my sister tells me everything. I didn't understand why I was being shunned. Well, Lisa Genova, the author of Still Alice, she wrote the foreword in a book by Greg O'Brien, who's a friend of mine. He called his book On Pluto, trying to describe his Alzheimer's as if he was living on another planet. She wrote that we're all terrified of Alzheimer's, this fortress of fear, shame, stigma, alienation, and isolation. It surrounds Alzheimer's, and it's not unlike what we saw with cancer 40 or 50 years ago. We didn't even say the word cancer. Instead, we called it the big C. And we said it in hushed voices. But something changed. We began talking openly about cancer. We began wearing ribbons and walking to raise awareness. If you looked across the street, you saw all the pink stuff over there. They're doing their cancer walk. But now we have treatment for cancer. We have cancer survivors. Right now, we have no Alzheimer's survivors. Well, the words that Lisa wrote, they resonated with me because I had a front row seat as it took my grandfather away. I also watched it as it took his daughter my mother away. Now I have that same disease. I'm going to die with it because there's no way to slow it down or take it away. But believe it or not, I'm okay with that. If it was good enough for them, it's going to be good enough for me. I've made peace with it. Now, when I first started advocating, I made the statement that I have a disease that no one can see. So I wish I had a big cape that had a big A on the back of it. And I would go around wearing the cape, becoming Alzheimer's guy. Well, there's a wonderful person that lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, and her name is Sherry Cannon. She heard me say these words, and the result of that is, wait for it. Don't go on yet. I did not put it on yet. I have my cape with the big A on the back. Now, being that she lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, it's the home of University of Tennessee, thus the bright orange inside. But right here it says, Brian LeBlanc, I have Alzheimer's, but it doesn't have me, which is my mantra. Over here is the DAA logo, the Alzheimer's Association logo, and also the Pat Summitt Foundation, which is very big in Knoxville. So, but even though I'll wear a cape, I'm not a crime fighter, but I'm a stigma fighter. Thank you. Oh, wait, no. I'm not done yet. Come on. But thank you for that. I don't fight with physical force. Instead, I use words. And I use my words to bring Alzheimer's awareness and education to anyone who's willing to listen. Now, whether it be 1, 100, or 1,000, my message is still the same. Don't count us out. No matter how hard we try, things sometimes don't go the way that we expected them to. Now, this is true whether you have a fatal disease or not. Let's take relationships. There are those who take the words in sickness and in health very seriously. When you're saying those words, you don't anticipate the sickness part. But in the back of your mind, you're saying, of course, I'll take care of them. When it becomes a reality, though, things can change. I got to tell you, this is the first time that I'm talking about this, so it's still kind of fresh. I didn't expect my marriage to end, but there are those who are natural care partners, which I'm looking at a bunch, and those who are not. We can be a handful. We can get irritated. We forget. We get moody. And we go through a range of emotions every single day. So, when my wife told me, I can't do this anymore, I understood. I know I'm not the man that I used to be. There are many days that I don't like myself either. But I don't have a choice. I have to live with myself. She doesn't. So I don't really blame her for wanting out. I don't hold a grudge. She's younger than me. She has a lot of years ahead of her. And I want her to enjoy them. I want her to enjoy those years instead of taking care of me. We had our good times, and that's what I hope that she remembers. But now, I live a life where I take care of myself. I know several other people who also have Alzheimer's, who, like me, are living by themselves. And they do it really, really well. That's also something the majority of society doesn't understand. How can someone with Alzheimer's live alone? They don't understand that. They don't comprehend that. I can answer it in 2 words. Quite well. When you have no other alternative, except for the eating alternative. Thank you. I just made that up, by the way. So, it still works, okay? But when you have no other alternative, you make it work. Because you have no other choice. Just because we have a disease that affects our brain and makes us forget things, again, don't count us out. We're still us inside. We may not be able to remember things from the day before, but we can still live in the moment. We can still enjoy life. One of my favorite places in this world to go by myself is Disney World. I've been going there since 1976, before, they just had Magic Kingdom. I've been there about 20 or 30 times. I can go there. The sights are familiar. The smells of the park are familiar. And what do they have playing on the sound systems all around Disney World? All the Disney music. It's all familiar. It's like a different place that I go to that I can still enjoy, that I still know my way around. People ask me for directions. They have no idea. Hey, can you tell me how to get to the Cup and Saucers? Yeah, go through Tomorrowland and take a left, and I can still do that. And I have pictures of myself in Disney World, and people go, "Oh my God, who'd you go with?" I said, "Well, I went by myself." And they said, "Are you serious?" It's possible. It's doable. Now, I'm not really sure what's going to happen later on, but for now, I live in the moment still because I can. And I do it every single day, whether it's small, whether it's big. So, living in the moment means that we can still enjoy our lives. We can still laugh. We can go out to dinner, go to a movie. We're still alive inside. So don't disengage us, but instead engage us, empower us, and enable us. I only have one life, and that's this one. Like I said earlier, it's not exactly how I envisioned this life to be, but it is what it is. It may sound strange, but nothing happens by chance. I firmly believe that I was meant to live this life, just so I can call attention to this most misunderstood disease called Alzheimer's. I hope that you take away some positives from what I said today. See, I vowed to do this in the memory of my grandfather and of my mother. My father passed away with vascular dementia. I know a lot of people that have lost their battle. And that's what it is. It's a battle with this disease. I know that today there are people that are going to go away. And they die with the disease. They don't die from it. They die with it because they've lived with it, and they die with it. They don't die because of it. It causes other things to happen. But like I said, I have vowed to do this in the memory of my family members. Being a fourth-generation person with this disease, as I said in the beginning, if it was good enough for them to have, then it's good enough for me to have. I can do this. So when I reach the point where I can no longer advocate effectively, I'm going to pass the baton to a newer and younger generation. I'm not ready to do that yet. But in the meantime, don't shove us in the corner. Let us take first stage. Hear our voices. Hear what we have to say. Talk to us. Learn from us. We're still us inside, and we can still teach. We can still make aware. The more people learn about this disease, the better off people that come after me will have. They'll have a better chance. They'll be more understood. But it starts with a little bit, starts with the ripple effect, and then goes from there. So, the chairs go in front, not in the back. So thank you for listening to me today. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity that y'all gave me. My name is Brian LeBlanc, and I have Alzheimer's, but it won't ever have me. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian LeBlanc, for that incredibly important message. I had the opportunity to hear Brian speak recently at the Leading Age Peak Conference, and I was so glad to know that he would be here again with us at the Eden Alternative Conference sharing this important message. Let's have another round of applause for all of the amazing speakers this morning. A few last-minute items. For CEU forms should be turned in at conference registration desk before leaving today if you need CEUs. Nurses, please remember you must have the session-specific evaluations completed to hand in. For this morning, the code is RISE AGAIN. That's RISE AGAIN. We also, I want to mention, have the Dementia Spotlight Foundation to thank for having Brian here with us this morning. They have an exhibitor booth out in the hallway, so please take a minute and stop by and see them and tell them how much we appreciate them having Brian here with us today. There was a little bit of confusion about the lunch and learn today. So lunch will be available at 12:30. So you'll pick up your lunch and then go to your session at 1 o'clock. So, and Denise told me that's why we call it a lunch and learn, Jill, because they bring their lunch to the learning. So thank you. So the next sessions will start at 10:15 this morning, the concurrent sessions, and we've got another great day planned for you all. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the conference.